Hello, Steve White, Trekboy89 for Steve Arts89. Well, my favourite Star Trek YouTuber, Jessie Gender, is able to get access to the new Star Trek Voyager documentary, To the Journey. Awful name. And she went over basically a bit of a review, and I'm like, how does she get to do a review when it hasn't even come out yet? Like, how is that okay? But she saw an earlier version of it, and she said that friends had seen it, and there'd been some more changes to it, but she went for a few issues. Now, the main issue that she had was the first documentary. It's done by the same people who did What We Leave Behind, which I still haven't seen because I hate Stephen R. Burr with a passion, and I just can't stomach Deep Space Nine. I don't want to hear about how they tried to basically destroy Star Trek and try and make something they thought was better by making something about religion and contemporary issues, and they just didn't share Gene's vision and just wanted to destroy it for their own. That makes me a little bit sick. So I haven't been able to stomach that documentary, but this one's made by the same people, and apparently the first one, at least quality-wise, was very good, and they had a lot of extensive interviews and a lot of access, and this documentary was a crowdfunding thing, and they got the money really quick, and it was really impressive, and everyone's been looking forward to it coming. And her disappointment was that she didn't feel that they went as far and as deep with the issues in Voyager that they did with Deep Space Nine, that this was like a softer documentary. And also there was a little extra part that was like a B story for a Deep Space Nine season 8 episode or something they would have done, that they sort of mixed in with the documentary stuff. And the Voyager one, they tried to do something similar. I think Garrett doing something to do with NASA or something, and those scenes really dragged. And also they apparently they sort of split the documentary up based on each character, which is a different way to do it. I guess I felt they had to do something different. While they kept some things the same that didn't work, and they changed some things which probably would have worked better had they just focused overall on the show. Now, one of the issues that I have, I'll do that last, but one of the reasons why I want to do this video was because I have an issue that keeps up coming up with Star Trek Voyager that she briefly mentioned. She felt like a lot of people that Voyager didn't live up to its potential because there should have been more conflict between the crew. And I'm like, that is such a ridiculous current day thought. The idea that this crew of people now, unified crew from two different areas, like, the Maquis and Starfleet, they would have kept fighting and just been at odds for like 7 years of the show. And because this didn't stay a constant part of the show, that somehow let down its premise. I'm like, that's ridiculous. These characters would have resolved these issues very quickly. Number one, because they're evolved human beings, and number two, because they were removed from the situation that aggravated that situation, because they have no idea what was happening in the Badlands and all that anymore. So there's no, Starfleet reacted this way, Starfleet didn't do this, this is what the Cardassians did, all that sort of stuff that would have kept aggravating and escalating any sort of issues between the crews was just not a factor. And maybe towards the end of the season, when they got back in contact with Earth, had someone found out, this is how that conflict went, some old things might have came up, that's something they could have done in those episodes, which I don't think they did. But the basic idea that the crew would keep fighting, that's such a contemporary, small-minded thing, and people who keep saying that just drive me nuts, because there's no way that crew would not have fully integrated, and any of the Maquis crew who wanted to become part of Starfleet, the Starfleet officers would have helped them, and they all would have been working towards the same goal of being a unified crew, a family, working together and achieving the same goal, because that's what evolved Starfleet officers, evolved human beings do. So the idea that people just kept expecting them to act like we would, that we would have held that grudge, we would have kept fighting on that political issue, even though we had no new input about the situation, like for years and years and years, is just ridiculous. I'm sick of hearing it. So that's that one. And she says that, they didn't really deal with that. And I'm like, there's nothing to deal with. So that's that. Now, the other issue was how they dealt with the perceived conflict between Kate Mulgrew and Jeri Ryan. Now, I have a little bit of insight into this because when Kate Mulgrew was in Australia, I asked her about this directly, and everyone always puts it towards her as, her conflict with Jeri Ryan and so forth, and it's usually portrayed as the older actress being threatened by the younger, more attractive actress getting more attention. I'm really disappointed that Jessie Gender sort of went with that and assumed that that was there and wasn't covered. What it really was about was the character of Seven that was what upset Janeway, Kate Mulgrew. Because I asked her how does she feel about the introduction of the character to the series and what that did to her character, and how that affected that and sort of undermined that. And she immediately went to talking about Jerry, and I interrupted her and I said, no, I don't mean you and Jerry. I mean, how did you feel about the character and what it did for your character in that? And she sort of first was like shocked that I interrupted her, like, you don't interrupt Kate Mulgrew. She gave me the look. It was terrifying. But then she realised what I was asking, and she actually seemed to appreciate that I was actually asking that, and she got to actually deal with that and just say, well, that was the issue. It wasn't I had a problem with this actress. The problem was I had a problem with this character and what it did, and we'd come so far with this character and women and Star Trek and everything, and then like we took 5 steps forward and then we took like 3 back. And her issue was with that character, and it may have been perceived by Jerry Ryan, who's a totally narcissistic person, that it was all about her and it was a personal attack, and it really wasn't about her. And I don't think it ever was for Mulgrew, and maybe it was perceived that way, but it was never meant that way. So that's why she doesn't seem to deal with it on that level. So I'm sure she didn't address it on that level because it doesn't exist for her, because it wasn't an issue with Jerry. And once people, because they seem to have worked that out now, and it seems to be Jerry sort of acting like, oh, I'm forgiving her because I'm the better person, when really it's more just about her stopping going on about it, and Janeway not having, I keep calling it Janeway, Mulgrew not having to deal with it. So I think that was more the case, and that's probably why it wasn't really addressed, because it's not really an issue on that in that way. And I was surprised that like she didn't seem to get that, but yeah. So she mostly talks about this stuff and all that, and the documentary sounds good. I too, like her, know a lot about Star Trek, so it's. She was saying it's more for the normies who don't really know the series, because if you do, you'll want to know more. You already know most of this, and you'll want some new insight. You want them to dig things up. Because everything that she sort of said they dealt with in an interesting way, I thought it was a very disrespectful way, was issues with Rick Berman. There are people who believe he stopped Star Trek from being better because he basically adhered to Gene Roddenberry's vision for the most part. And a lot of people who hate Gene Roddenberry and hate that version of Star Trek don't like the fact that he maintained elements of it through to the end, because some of it, was, he did compromise on a bunch of things. The fact Deep Space Nine exists shows that they were willing to be flexible and do different things. But yeah, so she sort of was going on about that a bit, and I don't know if he was homophobic. I was under the impression that he was gay. I don't know if it was internal homophobia or if he was straight and he was homophobic. But she said they didn't really address that directly, but they would say to him, well, did you do this or do that? And he'd say, well, no, I don't recall that. And then they'd have someone else's story saying, well, Rick did this. I mean, and they just undermined him every time and made it sound like he was just full of it. And maybe he is. But they certainly put it up that way. And I can't imagine him returning back for a documentary about, Enterprise or anything after this if they treated him that way. If they asked him questions, he gave answers, and then they had other people come in and say, well, actually, no, this is what happened, and undermined him every time. And maybe they're exposing something, and maybe he is guilty of something, but either way, I can't see him returning for a documentary if they've treated him that way. And that was sort of, I think, kind of what happened here, probably because they did dig really deep with the other documentary, which they didn't realise was going to be as big and successful and well produced and well received as it was. Maybe some of the actors didn't quite appreciate how far they dug, and maybe the actors coming into this one had some stipulations like, I'm not going to talk about this, I'm not going to talk about that. So I will talk to you because I want to do this documentary, but I'm not going to let you do me like the other guys. So maybe there was a bit of that. Maybe they were a bit more informed when they were coming into this about what the documentary was like and so forth. But I don't know because I haven't seen it, either of them. But I just thought it was interesting what Jessie was talking about, and I really resent the whole, Voyager didn't live up to its potential because the two crews didn't stay at each other's throats for like season after season, like we apparently would today if we were in that situation. I thought that was really ridiculous. And also the whole perception of the Kate Mulgrew, Jerry Ryan issue being just an older, insecure woman threatened by a younger character coming on. Because look at B'Elanna Torres, she was gorgeous. Was she ever threatened by her? No, because the character didn't undermine her character. It was about the characters. And the fact it was perceived as anything more than that is a bunch of misogyny. and I'm disappointed that Jessie seemed to miss that and play into that. So had to comment on all that. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I'm sorry to have done such a long video about a documentary that I haven't even seen, but I had a few things I wanted to say, so that's my little bit of YouTube therapy. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I look forward to seeing this one. I'll probably never watch the Deep Space Nine one, but I will watch this.